Well, the English sports media, and no doubt the whole media, were getting ready to lynch the England manager Gareth Southgate until a young man of immigrant stock popped up and scored a miraculous equaliser, keeping England for the next half hour at least in the European Football Championships. Well done, Jude Bellingham. You showed, despite all the criticism, why you're playing for Real Madrid. Well, the National Front, as they used to be called, the National Rally now, rose by any other name, have won the French elections. They got 34.5% of the vote. But Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the George Galloway of French politics, scored an amazing 28.5%, with little Macron, who called these elections following his humiliation in the European Parliament elections a couple of weeks ago, languishing in third place on 22%. Mélenchon is the president for the next couple of years, but he's going to have to cohabit with a prime minister of a very different stripe. Well, very different if the Macron supporters in the runoff ballot next Sunday, where the first and second placed candidates run off against each other. If little Macron's people vote for my man Mélenchon, then he's going to cohabit with a socialist prime minister in the French Assemblée Nationale. A socialist prime minister much like me, like Mr. Tony Benn. Common sense socialism is the hallmark of Mélenchon's campaign. It was a new popular unity movement where everyone came together to try and stop both the far right and the Macronists, the supporters of the restoration of royalty in France. Well, I mean, I don't mean literally, but anytime you see little Macron, he sure looks like he wants to be the emperor to me. It's a fascinating result and shows that the sweep of the polls in the European Parliament elections by right-wing nationalist parties is continuing and may very well continue into the British general election on Thursday, to which I now turn. 2 million people saw my call in less than 24 hours ago, my call on Nigel Farage to debate me in a hustings as the two great disruptors, him from the right, me from the left. 2 million people saw it. Hundreds of people from his own ranks called on him to accept my invitation to a debate in which he could have laid out his wares, I could have laid out mine, and we would have been free of the mainstream media setups and smears. But he respectfully dodged the invitation. Doesn't have time, apparently. Doesn't have time to speak in front of what would be an audience of millions. Don't mistake that. My interview with Piers Morgan on Piers Morgan Uncensored now has 7 million views in 4.5 days. 7 million. 2 million for my call on Farage to face me in debate. These are numbers that dwarf the mainstream political coverage in this British general election. But Farage didn't have the bottle to face me in a debate in which he could have played the hammer of Britain's immigrant communities. Like Jude Bellingham, he could have hammered Jude Bellingham. He could have said, we don't want Jude Bellinghams in this country. And I would have stood up and defended the Jude Bellinghams of this country. Wouldn't that be worth seeing? Wouldn't it be worth debunking the idea that Britain's problems are because we've got too many black and brown people in the country? Where would we be If not for the black and brown people in this country, well, we wouldn't have a decent dinner to go out for after the show. That is for sure. Because the Bangladeshi people in Britain, with their own hands, with no support from the government, with no support from the banks, have built a £4.5 billion a year, billion pound a year industry, all of their own, introducing us to the delights of Asian cuisine. They're usually called Indian restaurants, but none of them are. They're all Bangladeshi restaurants, which makes all the more bizarre why the Labour leader, in a clearly coordinated attack on the Bangladeshi community in Britain, 636,000 of them, helpfully concentrated in a rather limited number of parliamentary constituencies, why Starmer chose to attack the Bangladeshis. He's now saying it was clumsy. He misspoke. But that's a lie. That's one big black lie, Keir Starmer. You didn't misspeak. You did it deliberately. How do I know? Because right at the same time, John Ashworth, the Member of Parliament for Leicester, one of your right-hand men, said exactly the same words, launched exactly the same attack on the Bangladeshi community in Britain. That's why I know you are a liar. You're not just a racist dog whistler, getting down and dirty, chasing Nigel Farage's red wall, blue wall, Brexit, Reform Party vote. You're a liar. You don't even have the guts to stand up for what you did. The Bangladeshi population in Britain is not just the hardest working, not just the most peaceful and law-abiding. Do you know how many Bangladeshis are in the British prison system? 236. There's more people from Albania in the British prison system per head of population by an exponential thousands of percent more. Why didn't you pick on the Albanians? You didn't pick on the Albanians because there would have been trouble if you had. You counted on the fact that the Bangladeshis are peaceful, non-violent people. If you'd said what you said about some other communities in Britain, your parliamentary officers, your constituency officers would now be besieged by angry demonstrators, and everybody of that nationality representing your party as a candidate in this election and in other public elections in Britain would have been forced to resign their membership. I said on Wednesday, let me say it again, after Keir Starmer's attack on you, no Bangladeshi should be in the Labour Party. Every one of their councillors and parliamentary candidates should now resign. And I will be in East London tomorrow night with Ajmal Masroor, Independent, with Halima Khan, Workers' Party, and me at a big rally in East London as we try and rally the Bengali people in Britain to punish Keir Starmer. It's bad enough you've bathed the Palestinian children in blood with your betrayal, Keir Starmer. Now you're turning your knife on the people of Bangladeshi origin. If I sound angry, it's because I have represented more Bangladeshi people in the British Parliament than any other member in history. I was the Member of Parliament for Bethnal Green and Bow, the biggest concentration of Bengali people outside of Bangladesh. And I saw how they made that beautiful part of East London bustle and buzz with economic activity, cultural breadth and wealth. I know these people well, and I represent quite a few of them in Rochdale now. So, if you want to join us, come to the rally on Monday night, tomorrow night, in East London. The poster will go up on your screen in the course of this show. The Labour Party is in big trouble with the minority ethnic communities. The black, African, Afro-Caribbean communities have just been told by the Times and the Sunday Times that Big Eddie Amin, David Lammy, the worst foreign secretary in British history, will not even be the foreign secretary, having been the shadow foreign secretary, having sold his soul and God knows what other part of his anatomy to the Israel lobby in Britain. He did all that for nothing. He's not even going to get the job. Actually, most black people in Britain will be rejoicing at that. But it shows you how casually Keir Starmer is ready to treat the minority ethnic communities on whom his vote bank has rested for so very long. The Muslim population in general, 3.5 million of them, they aid voting for the genocide in Gaza, which continues. Twitter have just taken down the worst video of them all. A boy. Well, he was a boy. Now he's just a head and two arms. A head, a neck, a chest, and two arms. That's all there is left of him. Israel has the right to defend itself, don't you know? As one Labour grandee after another told you, ad nauseum, in the months in which Palestinian children, women, men were being slaughtered in their thousands, tens of thousands, Starmer was kicking people out of his Labour Party for demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Now you want people, co-religionists of those being slaughtered, to come out and vote for you? Are you serious? Are you serious, Starmer? What kind of Muslim would vote for you, dripping in Muslim blood, and putting your knife now into the Bangladeshi people? Do you seriously think that the millions of British people, non-Muslim British people, who've been out on the streets of Britain over this last 9 months, demonstrating, demanding a ceasefire, justice for Palestine, all these young people, all these students, all these Jews for justice in Palestine, do you seriously think they're going to vote for you? You are going to get a big shock on Thursday, Sir Kid Starver. Kid Starver in Britain, never mind Kid Starver in Palestine. I must turn, although I could go on, to the farce in Atlanta on Thursday, where the brain dead Joe Biden, brain dead, being forced on to a debate platform with an altogether more vibrant Donald Trump. He looks fitter, leaner, hungrier, better prepared than he was 4 years ago. Joe Biden, on the other hand, is brain dead. He didn't have a brain freeze. It wasn't a cold. It wasn't the cold medication. It's not that he has a stammer. It's that he is no longer a functioning human being. In any sane and compassionate society, he'd be being wheeled around in a bath chair by a nurse with his wife pushing the chair from time to time when she's not preparing for the G7 and all the other things that she claims to be doing as the First Lady of the United States, and he'd be probably spending his time out on the lawn with chilled lemonade to get him by through another sunset. Joe Biden cannot possibly be serious in standing again for the Democrats in November, as indeed I predicted many times here that he would not. He is recuperating in Camp David right now, discussing with his family what happens next. But one after the other, all these liberal organs, all these liberal democratic creeps that told us over and over again that Joe was as sharp as a tack behind closed doors. He was fully focused, don't you know? The staffers of the Biden-Harris administration had to run fast to keep up with Joe Biden. So great was his work rate, so focused his acuity. The truth is, everybody in America and everybody in the whole world now knows that Trump is raging bull. Trump is Rocky Balboa. and Joe Biden is a corpse. So they'll have to get rid of him. Question is, how do they get rid of him and get rid of Kamala Harris, laughing gas Harris, at the same time? Laughing gas cannot possibly go into the election as the Democratic Party's nominee because she's even more unpopular than Joe. I know it's hard to believe, but if you see some of her speeches, where we can be unburdened by where we have been. You must have seen it because she said it at least 1,000 times in public addresses. Let me run it by you again. This is Kamala Harris's pitch. Where we can be unburdened by where we have been. Ha ha ha! Peal of laughter. I tell you, that woman's not all there, as we say in Scotland. So they can't possibly put her on the ballot paper either. So how do you get rid of Joe without having to have Kamala as your nominee? Joe could be gently pushed down a slope in his bath chair, or he might have a toilet accident that becomes the mother of all accidents. Maybe he slips on it, bangs his head, and is no more. But what do you do about Kamala? How do you stop her laughing? How do you stop her? How? Well, there'll have to be quite a coup d'etat. And it'll have to be someone who commands broad consensual support in the Democratic Party. Maybe Big Mike Obama. A lot of money's going on her. But Hillary has made a comeback. Her badges are back on sale online. Hillary, Killer Clinton, and her basket of deplorables. But in truth, it doesn't matter who they put up. Trump is the next president of the United States. Unless he's terminated with extreme prejudice, which I wouldn't rule out. If I was Donald Trump, I'd watch my step very carefully over the next few months. Now, turning back, if I may, to the British political scene. The opinion polls, which are rigged, totally rigged. Now, most of them are not even opinion polls, but they're pitched endlessly as opinion polls. Nobody in Britain has ever been asked if they're voting for me and the 154 Workers' Party of Britain candidates. Not one person has ever been polled with that question. And Farage and his brand of Le Pen, Wilders, AFD, right-wing European nationalist politics, they've been consistently underestimated until they began to be overestimated, until they began to look with fright at the possibility of Farage being the leader of the opposition. Well, if I'm in the next Parliament on Thursday, and if Farage is also, and it looks likely that both of us will be, we'll be sitting at opposite ends, metaphorically, of the political spectrum, but we'll both be reining in blows on the Uni Party. The Tories will be reduced to virtually zero on current trends, and they will not be able to decide whether to go nice with Penny Mordaunt or go nasty with Suella Cruella Braverman. They won't be able to decide whether to merge with Nigel Farage's Reform Party, be subject to a hostile takeover or a reverse takeover. They won't be able to decide which way to turn. And while they spend the next few years recuperating, reconstituting themselves, I'll be landing left blows on Keir Starmer as Nigel Farage lands right ones. I'm sorry you didn't have the guts to face me, Farage, but I kind of doubted that you would. It's the mother of all talk shows. Stay tuned.